First of all, we are excited as a group to welcome you to UCI. My name is Derek Faison. I am the Director of Communications for the UCI Graduate Division here. And we basically wanted to put this panel together of our experts to answer any of your specific questions that you may have coming into the fall quarter, because we know in today's landscape, things change by the day, and we want to make sure you are going to be as comfortable as possible coming to school here next year. So with that being said, I know people are still filtering in, but I would like to introduce the Dean, Gillian Hayes, who will be leading this discussion. We have Tim, Gretchen, and Laura from our great housing department here. Gabriella Pham is our international expert here in terms of helping our international students get adjusted here. We have Zara Syed from the International Center, and then Ruth Quinnen down here, who also is kind of the person that heads up our academic affairs unit and enrollment information. So we wanted to get all these people together to answer any specific questions you may have. So before I begin, and you guys can start doing this as early as now, please use the Q&A box on the bottom right of your screen to type in any questions you may have. I will get those questions and filter those to the appropriate people. We will answer them one at a time. But before then, I'd like to hand it off to our Dean, Gillian Hayes, to give some brief opening remarks.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you all for being here. I know some of you are up in the middle of the night to attend this session, so we really appreciate hearing from you and getting a chance to welcome you to UCI and to tell you that no matter what is going on in the world, we are so happy to have you be a part of our student body this next year, and we hope that everything will start to look a little simpler as we go forward, but we know that there's still a lot of uncertainty in the world, so we want to make sure to touch base with you all. Thank you to those of you who pre-sent questions that gave us a good sense of some things that might be on people's minds. I always say you should definitely ask a question if you have, because if you had it, the chances are pretty good someone else does too. So those of you who sent in questions did us all a great service. So I'll just run through some answers to some of the questions, and then that'll give you some time as well to ask additional questions, and we can hear from the other panelists. So first of all, fall instruction. The key term about anything to do with instruction at the moment is to be as flexible as possible. We have a virus that continues to take really unpredictable turns. What we believe is happening right now is somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40% of graduate coursework will be held in person this fall. But if for any reason you don't make it to campus, you may still matriculate, you may still take classes. We promise the faculty will make a remote experience a possibility for you. And every course is going to have a variety of alternative formats, accommodations for anyone with any health concerns or any reason that you can't make it here. We obviously want you to come if you can. There's something really valuable, especially in graduate school, about those of you that are PhD students, really meeting your lab or your research group, getting to know the faculty, getting to know the other students. For those of you that are in professional programs and master's programs, meeting each other. Your cohort becomes the people who will buoy your careers forever. So we want to get you here if you can, but if you can't, we will take care of things. Your fall instruction will not be disrupted. We actually are very lucky in this regard because UCI has more fully accredited online programs and courses at the graduate level than any other University of California campus, and then more than quite a few folks that are out in the private schools as well. And our Division of Teaching Excellence and Innovation has really pushed for us to become one of the best places to study online. So again, we obviously want you here if we can get you here, but please don't worry about the quality of your education in the fall. If we can't get you here, we will support it. With that said, obviously the well-being of our people is the most important thing to us as a campus. And that includes our students, but also our staff, all the wonderful people that are joining me on this panel today, our faculty, and everyone else. So we are very aware of, health concerns and best practices. This is another case where UCI is a really good place to be because we have one of the best infectious disease faculties in the country, and we are using their expertise. We have top researchers who are meeting every single week to do data safety monitoring. They're collecting all of the latest data, and we're making evidence-based decisions about what we're going to be able to do with our students, with our operations, and so on. So we will take lots of precautions. Right now, we have a universal face covering order that will continue, we believe, into the fall. If you come to an in-person class, you will be wearing face coverings. We will be having the classrooms cleaned every single day, multiple times a day, all kinds of additional precautions to just limit the exposure as best we can. This is in keeping with both the laws of the state of California, but also, again, the best practices and the recommendations of our experts here on campus. We are also aware all of you have concerns about access to the United States, and different countries have different travel regulations at this time, both on our side, inbound, which countries we're accepting travel from, and many of you may have travel restrictions of whether you're able to get out of your country or come to the United States. We obviously can't control these, and neither can you, and that's a really frustrating place for all of us to be in. We would all like a lot more control over these situations, but we are going to work with you each to make sure that what makes sense for you. So for you as an individual, as we get closer to the fall quarter, whether it makes sense to go ahead and enroll and be at a distance, whether it makes sense to potentially defer. Some programs may be able to defer just to 1 quarter, or some may really need you to defer a full year. If you defer, it's going to be highly variable depending on the program and each of you as an individual. And so this is where the wonderful staff that are Gabriella and Ruth and other folks in graduate division are going to really step up and help you navigate this and make those decisions for you as a person. You're always a person first and a student second to us, so we will work with you. Please know we're not going to do much of anything for probably 3 to 4 more weeks in this regard, because as you may have noticed, every day we wake up and something is different. So we don't really know yet. So we just like to defer any decisions for as long as we can until we know better what the right thing is for you and for the programs and so on. The other big question that we get, of course, is about housing. So for our PhD students and our MFA students, you do get a housing guarantee. We are very fortunate that we have such a wonderful housing staff who have agreed to hold those guarantees. This is a logistical nightmare. I don't think that I'm exaggerating when I say that, but it is absolutely going to be a big challenge. But we are going to make it happen because it's that important. And then for those of you who are master's students, we will obviously work with you to try to get you into graduate housing when and where we can. And you should definitely reach out to get those lists and so on and so forth. I'm going to let Tim and his team talk a little bit more in a minute about any specific housing things they might want to mention, and obviously we can answer questions. So the last thing I want to mention is graduate welcome and orientation. We have made a decision to go ahead and make that remote or virtual. And so you do not have to try to rush to get to campus to spend a full day with 2,000 of your closest friends. That wouldn't be a great idea for a whole variety of reasons. The exciting thing about virtual orientation is, we have in the past had many tracks and other kinds of things, so you would necessarily miss certain things to go to other things. Doesn't happen in virtual. You can go to watch as many of these things as you want and also watch them again months later. So in many ways, virtual orientation is going to be really wonderful for you. Ruth and Gabriella and other folks on their teams have been working hard to get those orientation materials up and running, and you should have access to those in maybe about 6 to 8 weeks would be my guess, although they can obviously speak to that more. The official virtual orientation is September 25th. There will be some live sort of synchronous moments, if you will, but everything will be recorded. So don't worry about having to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning if that doesn't work for your schedule. So with that, I'm going to stop giving updates and hand over to other folks to see what you might like to talk about, and we can answer questions for you. I do see some coming in through the Q&A. And we can certainly work through those questions for you. It looks like the only one of these three that I'm the best person to answer is the admissions in computer science masters for spring 2021. Well, actually, I'm not the best person to answer. I'm going to let Ruth answer that one, but we don't generally do a spring 2021 admission cycle for that program, but perhaps they are trying to do one given all of the challenges.
Yeah, I have not heard that they are opening up admissions for subsequent terms. Most graduate programs at UC Irvine do admit for fall term only. However, with the circumstances, they may be looking at being more flexible. So that certainly is something we can look into and email out everybody to answer that question. But I mean, normally the answer is no, but these aren't normal times, so.
So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tim, our Director of Housing, both because he may want to say something about housing generally and because there is a wonderful question in here about when housing assignments might be available that I am sure I am not the best person to answer.
Cool. Thanks, Gillian. So first of all, just generally, we are really looking forward to having you on campus. You probably saw in our information that we have 3 housing communities for graduate and family students on 2 different sides of campus: Verano Place, Palo Verde, and Campus Village. All offer basically kind of the same types of unit plans, but each community has its own flavor. And so we're looking forward to working with you to get you the best fit for the floor plan you want and the community that you want. As Gillian said, this is going to be a very unique year. Typically, our process is we just have it down to a science, but there are so many factors that we're kind of responding to as well. So please reach out. I think one of the core messages that I would want to put out there is reach out and let us know what your thoughts and needs are, because we're going to try to think ahead on what you need to know, when, and how you need to know that, but we probably will miss some things. So please do reach out to us for answers and for assistance. I'm actually going to hand it over to Laura to answer the question that came up through chat or through Q&A about when assignments might be coming out. So Laura, would you mind handling that question?
Hello, great question. We get this question a lot. Gretchen, our analyst, I'm sure she gets this 6 times a day. I'm happy to announce that we have started to send out new guarantee leases. So the first group that went out are the ones that for maybe an academic reason needed to be here. Sometimes families, they need to get here earlier, but for the most part, they're starting to get them out now. You, hopefully the viewer, can expect to be getting them over the next, we say through the end of July, but they have started to go out now. They are going out, we're using DocuSign, so it's a contactless, paperless process, but they are going out now. If you're feeling a little anxious, why haven't I gotten my offer yet? Please reach out to us. We're happy to reassure you that it is coming. Make sure we have the correct email, like any of those questions. All the questions are valuable, even if you feel like I should know the answer. Please reach out to us. We call, we Zoom. I'm sure we find other methods if needed. So just reach out to us, but offers are going out now, and we are really working hard to meet your preferred month as well as give you what we call a best fit offer.
Thank you so much, Laura. And I really appreciate, I know everyone's inboxes are just really, filling up with all of these queries, and you're getting tons of information from us. And you're probably, those of you who are still in school right now, you're getting tons of information from your current universities, and we know you're overwhelmed. If you have a question, do not be shy. Just reach out and ask us anytime. I see another question in the chat. I'm going to bounce over to Ruth, which is about if if they don't have their transcripts and diploma to UCI, the sort of paper ones by fall quarter, what can we do about that?
Actually, that's fine. We understand and we'll be flexible about that. I'm going to type the person you can email into the Q&A to let, just alert one of the admissions staff that you're having trouble getting your documentation due to COVID-19, and we'll make sure that you're able to register and everything else. We realize that flexibility is necessary on things like this. First and foremost, we want you to get to campus and be healthy, and we would like to be welcoming, so certainly we'll be flexible about that. So I'll type in the email of the person you can contact just to alert him that getting your transcripts and so forth at this time due to COVID-19 is problematic.
Sorry, I started saying something while I was still on mute. So while Ruth is typing that in, I want to pause for a moment and let Sarah Syed give you a quick update and answer from our International Center. Our International Center is working around the clock at the moment to process as many visas and get your I-20s to you and all of that good stuff. And she can give you a little bit more of an update on our process and just also so you know who you can talk to if you have any questions there.
Thank you so much, Gillian. And from the side of the International Center, I'd like to welcome all of you as well. And I look forward to hopefully seeing many of you in the fall. And we are still keeping our hopes that you will be able to come here, in person. That's why we've been continuing from our office issues the F1 and the J1 documents once a student has been admitted and we've been notified and have the file. So we've been working around the clock to make sure you are getting those documents. One of the good things, somewhere, for those of you that had it early, we were sending hard copy. And I think Gillian mentioned things are ever changing. We have now been able to send electronic documents to you and have understood that the Department of State is accepting those. We were waiting for all of that before we started doing those. And that's one step that's a little faster, is to get those electronically. And that's kind of just the process. What we are also doing is knowing that you haven't, you're still in the process of getting your documents, applying. Hopefully visa consulates will open soon in time for you to come. If that doesn't happen, we will work with you and the academic departments to defer records. So I do want to let you know that as long as we have the information and departments are letting us know that for whatever reason, either a student was unable to come, let's say for visa processing issues or travel restrictions, or maybe they've just chosen to defer at a later time for personal reasons, we will work with you to try to defer that record based on whatever the department tells us is the deferred date. We do need to have that in order to properly update the SEVP record that you have. So if there's any change, please do let your academic department know so that we are in that loop of communication, so we can work quickly to get you information updated as well. That's sort of the process. We get involved after the admissions, so much of those questions are directed to not our office, but one of the things we do like to be is sort of the hub of information for immigration changes. And our office is, even today, there's been a new proclamation being done literally as we speak. And we are trying, the best places to try to go to our website. We try to update those as soon as possible as we get information, and actually confirmed information, not just this is what is planned or this is what we think is happening, but actual when it's signed and it goes into effect. So we want to be very mindful that we've analyzed the information that's being sent, and then we share that with you. So I didn't want to spend too much time on today's order, but the good thing is that we were sort of waiting for and holding on to is that it does not affect OPT. And that we were really worried about with this new proclamation, because there was a little bit of gray area. You know, other visa categories was very general, and so they were left out, and F1s are left out in today's order. So that's my good news for today to report. So as long as you're able to get visas, you're not from a restricted travel country, then this new proclamation should not affect our incoming students that are an F and J.
Thank you, Tara. I'm noticing a couple questions in the chat that I can answer, and then others that that we're going to need Ruth's expertise on for sure, and others that we'll need Housing's expertise on. So I'll go with the easy one, which is Natalia's question: can we get the visa? And if we cannot get our visas, will we be forced to defer? And the answer is a solid no. We are allowing people to enroll online in the fall, no matter why you can't get here. So even if you can get your visa, but maybe flights are blocked or whatever might happen, if it's COVID related, then absolutely we are not going to require you to be physically present here to go ahead and enroll in the fall. So great question, thank you. And then, but then the other question is, on the other hand, can I defer to fall? So probably is the answer there. We would prefer not to process those yet because we really don't know what's happening. And so most of the programs are really waiting till middle to end of July to look at what's happening, who's able to get their visas, who's able to get travel plans in place, and so on and so forth, and who is not, so that we can make smart decisions about what we're doing there. So we just ask you to hold tight a little bit longer, and then we will absolutely work with you if you're not going to be able to get here in the fall, and see what the options are that sort of make sense. So Ruth, with that, I'm going to hand it over to you with some detailed questions about transcripts and provisional degree certificates, if you can see them in the chat. If you can't, I can read them to you. And you are muted.
I had a dog barking next door. So there is a question about where can we find the schedule for fall, when to pay the tuition or when to enroll in class. So I can tell you that the fee payment deadline is September 15th, although I believe you can start paying your fees after the first week in August. I will give you the website for the registrar. That's where you find all the information on calendars and deadlines and so forth. So that is okay, there's that. Let's see, another question about transcripts. Yes, you will be able to bring them by our office. We would prefer that they're in an unopened envelope, of course, from the institution that it has issued the transcripts. But yes, there will be people in our office or where you can leave mail and so forth. So yes, that should be fine as far as bringing your transcript in person.
And then the last question is about if a provisional degree certificate works for now, given delayed convocations.
That is a good question, and I believe so, at least for fall. But again, if you would email the gentleman I gave you the address for earlier, and I can type it again if you need it, and just ask him the question and let him know that there are issues and that you're having problems with the transcripts and the degree certificates. As I said, we'll be as flexible as we possibly can, particularly for fall quarter. And should I type in his address again?
Yeah, Ruth, if you could you just, where it says type answer, let's just type that in just to make sure. And then
absolutely.
For those of you who are watching the chat, those questions do go over to the answered tab once something has been typed in. So if you're looking for your question and it has already been answered, that is where the answer is. It's on the actual answered tab. Worst case scenario, for those of you watching this on Facebook who maybe can't see the Zoom chat, you can always email grad@uci.edu and we will redirect you to wherever the right place is. So that's at least an easy one to remember for anyone who needs those. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to housing. We've got a question about what to do if they've gotten a housing offer but not yet gotten a visa.
Right. What I would recommend is you reach out, just respond to the email that's listed in the offer and let them know. They will work with you to hold it. I'm not sure if you got an offer now, if they would hold it all summer, or if they would just put you back in the queue and give you an offer later. But we're not holding it against you because if you're having trouble getting a visa. It's not the same thing as declining an offer because it faces the wrong direction or you don't want to live in a particular community. So it's not being held against you. I'm not 100% sure the language they'll give you, but I would just reach back out to the community that sent the offer and let them know we're really expecting these questions to be asked. We will work with you, whether it's to hold that offer for a period of time, or if you think, well, I'm not even going to know for a few months, then they'll issue you a new offer at a later date. But you wouldn't lose your guarantee because you're working to get your visa. You can also reach out to me if you're like, I don't know who to talk to. I'm happy for you to just reach out to me and I can get you where you need to go as well.
And Laura, this is Gretchen. I was just going to chime in as well that absolutely there isn't a negative impact on your housing guarantee. So if you receive an offer and you don't yet know with certainty if you're going to be able to get to campus, you can feel free to go ahead and accept that offer. If something subsequently changes and you're not sure that you can get to campus, definitely coordinate your situation with the International Center. We can confirm your status with them. If you subsequently need to decline, there will be no penalty in terms of you've accepted an offer and now you're not coming. You'll receive the same housing guarantee that you would have received. And I will type into the Q&A the email address for grad status, which is where you can always email with any questions that you have about your housing guarantee.
Sorry, Dean Hayes, in case you are watching this on Facebook or wherever you're watching this, we will be sending out an email with this video in its entirety, along with some emails of some of the people you see here on this panel that you can reach out to with any questions. In case, I know it's an overwhelming time, so you're probably going to come up with a lot more questions. So we will be in touch with you after this. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and it looks like we've got a question in the chat about fall quarter being remote. So I know I said this in the beginning, but I hear that my tech wasn't great and I was a little glitchy. So let me say again as clearly as possible, absolutely not. Graduate courses are planned, at least about 30 to 40% of them at this point, to be in person, and scholarly activities will absolutely be taking place in person. So for our graduate students, many of them are already back in their labs. We're working on getting the libraries open for our humanists and our social scientists. And you know, even if the individual courses that you might be taking are offered online as opposed to in person, because they won't all be in person, there will still be many things happening in person that we would love for you to be able to be here if you can. If you can't, we will do everything we can to make sure that a remote option is available. So for PhD students, if you can't make it here, then obviously you'll have one-on-ones with your advisors via Zoom or some other technology. If you can make it here, then you'll be able to participate in research activities on campus. So we are absolutely prioritizing graduate education being able to be offered in person in the fall as much as we can, and still feel like we're balancing the other factors that we need to consider and putting our people first. So we've got a couple of questions that I think are best fielded by Zara. One about when the I-20s will be available, and one about employment potential for folks who are not able to make it here to the U.S.
Okay. Thank you, Gillian. So the question about the I-20, we are right now at about what is listed on our website at 3 weeks at issuance of complete documents, where I think as of today, we're probably 2 days ahead of that time. So as things are going. We're getting a little bit faster. So as we get the documents, yes, which is much better than a few months ago. So yes, we are getting a little bit faster on the issuance. And like I said, now because they're electronic, you'll have them, electronically rather than having to wait for the mail, and adds extra time for that mailing to actually reach you. So that's one other positive step. As far as the employment, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to answer that question. So I don't know, because we're still, everything that we talk about is F1 on campus and OPT and CPT, which means you are physically here. And because my office has oversight of US employment, not if you're abroad. And I know given the current situation, things are, some students may be abroad, but I don't have the actual answer for any abroad employment, because that has not been 100%. It's determined. So that part I don't have the answer for, unfortunately. I can, if they want to send me that question, we can look. I know I've been in communication also with Ruth. This question has come up while a student is still away.
We do think that students will be able to receive fellowship stipend while they are still in their home country. But yes, we're trying to get legal opinions on whether or not we can employ someone who hasn't been able to physically get here and get that particular type of visa. So we are looking into it. I wish we had a definitive answer right now, but we don't. But we are trying our best to get one as soon as possible.
I'm sort of shocked, but oh wait, another question has come in. I was about to say we've run out of questions in the Q&A, but we're getting a couple more, so hooray. As far as coming to campus physically, it's a great question. We are not going to have an in-person international graduate student orientation. All of the orientation activities will be virtual because large group activities are not allowed. But Gabriella has done a wonderful job putting together materials and is continuing to do so for that, and also runs a program called Grad Interconnect, which is probably worth mentioning quickly right now.
Yeah, well, welcome. We just wanted to say congratulations to coming to UCI. We're looking forward to having you here. We just want to get you acclimated to campus. So I run the Graduate Interconnect program, which you will be introduced in a few weeks or so, and also being introduced to a peer mentor who's going to help you get acclimated to campus virtually. We're going to be also having social events online. That way you can meet other international students who are coming this fall or this year, this quarter, depending on what the environment's looking like. But we want to make sure that you're acclimated in the best sense. We understand there are a lot of challenges for international students who may be coming from a different country or a different place here in the US. And being in a large institution like UCI, there's some resources, some information, some policies that sometimes is not as clear as we think it might be. So it's nice to be connected to a current graduate student. So you will be introduced to one of them in the coming weeks via email. In regards to orientation, it is a virtual event this year. Typically, we do have a 2-day orientation for international students, but seeing that it is now virtual, you will have access to all of that information in virtual space. Zara, the International Center, as well as myself through the Graduate Interconnect program, as well, and your peer mentors are going to be able to answer those international specific questions to help you understand the lay of the land, how to navigate the campus successfully. So we're really excited about the virtual orientation. Keep in mind, we will still have information that is just dedicated for international students, even though it is now a campus-wide program.
Thank you so much, Gabriella. So a couple other questions that have come in. One is about TA training. That is also going to be virtual this year. We did get that confirmation that will be virtual for everyone, domestic and international students. So you should be getting emailed information out from the Division of Teaching Excellence and Innovation regarding those programs as we get closer to the fall. I've got a great question in here from Alberto about what to do if he doesn't have his master's diploma. I am so excited. This is a technical question I actually know how to answer. That rarely happens. It is completely fine for you to just bring your bachelor's. We don't require a master's degree for our PhD programs, so don't worry about it. I can only imagine how stressful it is to try to defend your master's thesis and have everything shut down. And then the last question here about tuition. So the good news is that despite the fact it is about 20 to 30% more expensive to deliver online education, we are not raising your tuition. So no, whatever format your courses are being delivered in, whether it's what we call dual delivery, which means we have some people attending remotely and some in person, or if it's a fully remote course, or if it's a fully in-person course, your tuition will not change. Don't let that worry you in any way. The tuition and fees are set as they were when you applied, and that won't change. And now I think we've finished all the questions in the Q&A. So I want to invite the other panelists if they have anything that they would like to add. Again, you know, from my perspective, we are just so excited to welcome you and so frustrated that we are doing it under these circumstances. So with that, I'd love to pass it over to anyone else who wants to say a few things. And in the meantime, if you have more questions, please do add them into the chat. Remember, you're not just asking questions for yourself, but also for those who might be watching this tomorrow on a recording or other times and weren't able to ask questions directly. So anything that you think might even possibly be a question someone would have, we really encourage you to go ahead and ask them.
Just to jump in really quick before I let our panel of experts take the floor here, in regards to the fantastic orientation opportunity you're going to have that Gabriella was talking about, please look for an email from Dean Hayes tomorrow that'll basically serve as your save the date for that orientation. So we imagine, keep in mind, there are going to be a lot of questions, you know, even from now until that date. And that date will be September 25th. And we will have a lot more answers for you then. So keep that in mind. It's definitely something you're going to want to participate in. And we have really done, Gabriella has really done a great job of kind of making sure this orientation is catered toward this unique experience that we're experiencing this year. So you're definitely going to want to be there for that. So keep an eye out for that. And there will be a reminder in the email that you will receive after this session in regards to that as well.
Yeah, and I just like to add to that, you know, we're really excited for the virtual orientation. What's great about it is, like, since everyone is all over the world, you can do it at your own pace and your own time. The one thing that I do miss about not having in-person orientation is the opportunity for the international students to engage with each other, right? We're a really big proponent of networking with other students, and since we can't do that, we're trying our best to create virtual environments. So I really encourage you to connect with your peer mentors once you get an email from them. The email will be coming to your personal email as well as your UCI email if you haven't already activated that yet. All of our peer mentors are experienced graduate students in all different disciplines, PhD and master students. So while they might not be from your exact program or exact discipline, I would say take it as an opportunity to be in this interdisciplinary world that we really encourage in UCI and connect with others. They have a lot of experience, so they will be sending you emails to help kind of orient you during the summer before the actual orientation, giving you guidance on housing, their experience of housing, what's it like to live in Irvine and Orange County, where to buy groceries, some of the simple things that we don't want you to get flustered with once you get here on campus. So please take advantage of connecting with your peer mentors when you meet them during the summer, virtually.
Thank you, Gabriella. I've got a great follow-up question about fellowship funding. To be super clear, our current guidance is that we are able to give out fellowships. We do not know if we can hire you as TAs or GSRs. So that is our current guidance. It changes all the time. As you can imagine, faculty very much would like to be able to hire students as TAs and GSRs if we can make it happen, even if you are remote. But fellowship funding should be fine. It's a little bit of a logistical challenge, but we believe it is legal, whereas we are not clear on the legality of the hiring at the TA and GSR level. And then the follow-up question about arriving to UCI potentially late. I'm going to ask Zara to confirm this, but my understanding is you really need to be on campus by the end of the 3rd week of courses in order for your visas to be all set. But I might have that wrong, so let's make sure Zara answers.
Yes, thank you, Gillian. Yes, you're right. It's 3rd week and the end of 3rd week. And the reason that is as a new student, we have to register a record within 30 days. So it falls in line with the SEVP guidance for a new student. So by the 3rd week, if you arrive, I know we've gotten this question by that summer, that could count for your 3 quarters for CPT and OPT. So the 3rd week is our cutoff time. And if not, then we would have to defer the record. So that's, and like Gillian, you said, things are ever changing. That is the information as of now. And I'm guessing that will stay because the regulatory point of having them registered is 30 days, unless there's something that's changing based on COVID. But right now, 3rd week is right.
And Sarah, can you walk through any steps that they might take in terms of things they need to do regarding residency and so on? Jasmine, I'm not 100% clear if you're asking this. This is an international focused town hall. So normally when I hear California residency asked, it's a domestic question, which is a slightly different thing. But let's get Zara to answer on the international front. And then just in case there's any domestic students answering, we'll let you know what you need to do on the domestic side.
Right. So I agree. Usually there's 2 things with residency. It's for tuition and fees, and our registrars makes that determination. So I'm not sure, Jasmine, if you're international. I'm talking about F1 and J1 students that enter on our documents that our office issues. That's the 3rd week that we have to register them per CVIS. So if you're a domestic student, I think that may be deferred to the registrars. That's for tuition and fees.
Yeah, and Ruth, do you want to walk through for, in case we have domestic students out there listening, what they need to do on the California side?
Basically, once you've filed your statement of intent to register as yes, so you do intend to register, then the next step in that process is to file your statement of legal residency. And again, this pertains to domestic students only. International students typically cannot establish California residency. Only domestic students can. Normally that process takes a year unless you've already been in California for some period of time. But the residence deputy in the registrar's office would be the person to ask specific questions of. Normally you have to do things like get a California driver's license, register to vote, some I think open up a bank account, things like that to establish California residency. If you're just coming to California, that process usually takes a year. So you would be a non-resident in California for a year and then be able to establish residency. But if you go to that registrar's website that I typed before, and I can retype it, there's a column on the left-hand side of their webpage, and one of it is residence classification. So you can get any specific information there.
Thank you, Ruth. And just to note that much like the international regulations, our domestic regulations are changing on a pretty regular basis right now as well. So I would say in general, what I have found in the state of California to be true anyway is an attempt at maximum flexibility in the face of COVID. So all things like accreditation of programs, residency status, all of those things, to the degree that the state of California is in charge of it, there is a real attempt for flexibility there. So certainly email us with any specific questions and so on. Zara, if you can see the chat, we've got a couple more questions that are sort of international center style questions. One regarding if they cannot get their immunizations done, and the other about should they hold off paying SEVIS if they think they might not hit certain deadlines.
Let me actually, I'm doing this off my phone, so I'm not seeing all this, so thank you for giving it.
I'm sorry, I'm reading a specific question, so I'll read them to you one at a time. So what if I cannot meet the immunization requirements due to not being able to come to campus in person as some vaccines are not available here? Can we postpone the deadline for the immunizations?
Okay, so the immunization portion of it for an F1 is more for the campus requirements. For F1, that's something they're going to need to show when they go to the visa officer. So it's at the time, if it's questioned, that's something that they need to produce either for the visa interview or when they're coming to campus for to have insurance. For our campus, I mean, for us, we don't need it for the actual issuance of the document, but these are two different areas where that is important. So however they can, or maybe even talk to health insurance, student health, to see if there's now, where everything is being a little flexible, what options the student may have. But definitely it may be asked at the visa interview. Those are sometimes the questions that or documents that they will ask for.
Great, thank you. And then the second question is, if there's a chance we might not make it to campus for the fall, should we hold off on paying SEVIS?
Okay, so the SEVIS fee that you're talking about is if you've paid it and we've deferred, we can defer it to that because the number will stay the same. So if it's paid and you're pretty sure you're able to at least try to come and you have the document, that can be deferred to the next quarter if we need to defer you, because it's the same number, the same SEVIS number will be deferred. That's why we want to make sure we know ahead of time that if you're not coming and you're choosing to go to, let's say, whatever the next quarter the department is allowing you to go to, that fee is also transferred with that. But of course, it's not a small fee, and then we say it's at your discretion. Certainly at the time of the visa appointment, you will need to have that, and even when you're trying to make the appointment, a lot of times they'll ask for that SEVIS fee depending on which consulate you're applying to.
Thank you. And then another F1 question for you. Sorry, you're on a roll, so don't think you can, you definitely cannot mute. So a follow-up is, how long can the fee defer?
I've had at least 1 year, but let me find that out. I know some students defer to a whole other year, and I know at least for 3 quarters it's definitely been deferrable. I can get back, and Gillian, I can let you know if it can be deferred to the following year. My guess is yes, because it's still a deferral and it's still, the person has paid it and it's the same SEVIS number. But I just want to make sure that there's no issue with that.
Great, thank you. So we'll get that information and get that sent out along with the other materials that Derek was mentioning earlier. And then one more for you, Zara, before you can mute. If the change of status towards F1 visa within the US is still pending when the fall I-20 start date passes, basically what should they do next?
The actual change of status in the US, as you know, anyone who's applying for that, there's a good chance it will be pending. Those take months. We're talking 6 to 8 months and even further. When you're deferring, we have to defer the record, but you're okay to be here until that change is done. The other important thing to remember is these change of statuses have become quite complicated because they want your current record not to lapse. And so we have highly, highly recommended students, once the I-20 is issued and you've told us you're doing a change of status, that you work with an immigration attorney. Because the length of time, which has always been an issue with that, we can always defer the SEVIS number, which is not a problem. It's the status that you want to be sure that it is maintained when they go to review your application. And for that, we do recommend an immigration attorney to kind of give what's called a sort of a bridging of your current status and into the new status if the current one lapses. So I don't know, it's a little complicated, but just for change of status purposes, the takeaways, please do work with an immigration attorney and then let us know, because the I-20, how we issue it, is listed for change of status as opposed to initials. So we do need to know if you're planning to leave the US to apply for that visa and that status, or you plan to remain in the US and process it through a mail-in process.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. So again, we recognize there is a lot of complicated information that you are trying to absorb, that you are trying to get from us and everything else. Please do not be shy with your questions. You can reach out to Laura or Gretchen in housing anytime with your detailed housing questions. You can reach out to the International Center as you have questions emerge surrounding the visas. I just want to reiterate, we really don't know what we don't know right now. And so we probably won't make any moves on deferrals and other kinds of solutions to your various challenges for another, probably month, maybe even a little bit more. But certainly we are aware of them. We are monitoring the situation. We're doing everything we can to get you here. And if we can't, we're going to open up the variety of other options that might include online enrollments, might include deferrals, and so on and so forth. So, please do reach out with the questions that you have. We know this is an anxious, tough time, and just sending you all of our best wishes and our gratitude for your patience as we work through this. And certainly your peer mentors that you're going to get soon from Gabriella's team will also be able to help answer a lot of questions or know who to direct you to on campus. So we are about 5 minutes from the end of our time, so act quickly if you want to drop another question into the chat. And otherwise, I will allow for any closing comments that anyone might have on the panel.
I just actually wanted to make a quick follow-up to the orientation. Just want you all to know that your school and or program might be also hosting their own orientation. So please be mindful of emails regarding that from your own program or school. Their format might be slightly different from what graduate division is hosting on September 25th. So keep that in mind. They might be on the same date. They might be on different days that week, but we are all doing it so that way you all feel comfortable, have information that you need. In regards to the graduate division's orientation, you'll have access to all of the information throughout your whole entire time here at UCI. So you will have time to orient yourself at your own pace.
And clearly last call works because
Yes.
we did get a couple more questions in there. So one I'm going to bounce to housing is if you could answer what our current quarantining plans are. And I know those change frequently, so just give us the best you can.
Yeah, so we'll be sending out information as soon as possible about what your entry to our housing communities will look like. Right now, we are waiting for final guidance from our campus health officials and experts on what we are now calling sequestering. We're not calling it self-isolate or self-quarantine. And what that will likely mean is that you'll be able to move into your unit, but that will ask you to sequester for a period of 10 to 14 days before you go out and engage in the community. We're not exactly sure, to be honest, what sequestering means and how it will be different from quarantining. We know that that's a little less restrictive than a quarantine or an isolation, but we want to give you some very specific guidance on what that will look like. So look for that forthcoming as soon as possible.
And I'll just add to that of course, if you can get here that full 14 days prior to courses starting, that's wonderful because that means you will be able to attend those courses that we are offering in person. But if you are not able to get here, we are committed again to the faculty offering you remote participation in those courses. So it may be that you spend your first week online from your apartment and then attend classes after that. Those kinds of things. We will absolutely be flexible depending on what you're able to do and when you're able to get here. We have a question. Zara, I'm going to give this one to you again. Can H4 visas receive any fellowship funding? I'm not sure I know.
H4, which is a dependent of an F1 visa, is not someone our office works for. My understanding is H4 are not able to work. but that's something maybe academic personnel would do, because we don't actually, unless it's our H1, then it's not somebody that we would be overseeing their record. My understanding is many times H4s will change and try to be F1. But again, for funding, because it's not something our office oversees, I don't have the answer to that. We do see students change from H4 to F1 for the reasons of being able to be employable later on.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And then Radhit is asking about how departments select TAs. My answer to this is it's incredibly idiosyncratic within the individual programs, but Ruth will probably give you a more detailed and informed answer than that one.
Well, I think when students apply, they can indicate if they're interested in TA-ships, for example, and typically PhD students are given an offer, a guarantee of funding that may be in the form of fellowships, TA-ships, GSR-ships, or some combination of all of those things. So if you're interested in being a TA, I would suggest emailing your program and letting them know. Gillian is correct. Everybody has something of a different way of doing it. I think, for example, programs in the School of Social Sciences do want students to apply, but if you email them and let them know you're interested, they will let you know what their process is. But yes, every school and program does it a little bit differently, so you're better off emailing the program directly and saying, I'm interested in this, what's the process?
Yeah, and if you have any trouble with that, certainly you can reach back to those of us in graduate division. We can help point you in the right direction, but ultimately we're mostly going to be finding that person in the school and pointing you to them. So if you already know who that person is, you can save a step and write them directly.
And if you don't, you can write to us and we'll usually know who the right person is.
Yes. We're very good at triaging and pointing people in the right direction. So we're happy to take those on. All right, we are straight up on the hour, exact right time. So the last call worked perfectly. We got just the right number of questions to be able to answer those. Please do reach out and email, again, the International Center, Graduate Division, Housing, Student Health, really anyone who you think can answer any questions that you have. There's no such thing as a dumb question. We are very happy to hear from you. And we are very happy to welcome you to our university, obviously remotely for now, but hopefully in person very soon. Please stay well, stay safe, wear your face coverings, and we look forward to seeing you when we can.
The